Have you ever wondered how to draw a complicated looking pattern like this in the simplest way possible? In this video, I will uncover step by step how to draw this pattern so you can even create any your own. And as always, welcome to Beauty Slash channel, where I share tips and tricks and free resources for permanent makeup weekly. So whenever you start with drawing a pattern for your hair stroke, you need to do two things. First, mark your shape and then draw a spine line. Let me just walk you through each for you to understand how to do this. So the first step is marking the shape. I usually mark the front, the arch, and the tail, and just adding additional lines in between. These will be a guidelines for us later to do our strokes. And then the second step is drawing a spine line. In this case is the lower spine. The spine line usually represents the hair flow of the client. In this case, the hairs are coming to the spine, which is the lower spine. So all the hairs from the bottom and from the up will come to our lower part. Now, if just give you an example, if it would be the middle spine, then all the hairs would come to the middle from the lower part, and from the upper part just would come to the middle. And then if it's the upper spine, it's usually invisible, but it means just the hair strokes are coming upwards. All right, so that is clear. So I've already marked my shape and I already did my spine, but let me show you how I did it. So if you can see, the spine starts from this point, have a little curve and come down into this point. Actually, it goes a little bit beyond, but that's, you will see later. And this also have, if you can see, it's just like a circle. So it does have a curve over here. And I just like a little bit to stick out of the shape, have a nice curve, and then have like a little straight curve to this point. Now the second step is to draw our main lines. The main lines will be at the bottom, at the arch, and at the front. So I will first draw them and then explain to you how I did it. I will first start with the bottom. And by the way, if you want to practice this pattern on paper, don't forget to download the free PDF under this video. And of course, I have also Procreate settings if you do use Procreate. Now I will explain to you how you can repeat this after me. So let me change the color to blue. If you look closer, this stroke starts from the middle. It goes through the middle over here, and it gets closer to the spine, also around the middle. Of course, later I will make sure that the stroke goes further because we want to create an eyelash effect. Eyelash effect is when another eyelash comes from the first one. So the connection is not like this. This is wrong one, but rather the connection is not ending here, but going through and ending over here. This is a crucial knowledge in hair stroke technique. We don't end it over here. We have to go through. It's like eyelash. That's why later you will see these all strokes will have a little continuity. All right, so what about the second line? The second line starts from this point. I actually, in my mind, keep the same distance till I can curve it. So you can see over here is also kind of going through the middle and reaching over there. What I just envision in my mind when I draw this line, start with this point and I make sure I have the same distance between them up to this area, and then I just curve it the same way as I curved this one. to get it through. And then the same way, for this point, sometimes you would start this from the middle, but if you notice from the middle, they are too close and this distance is not equal to this distance. So if you want to have a beautiful pattern, it's better to keep the same distance between each lines. That's the key in making a perfectly beautiful pattern. It's a really huge secret for you to know. So as you can see, these are the same, have the same distances. So I just draw this line and then the last one. You also will find out that I a little bit go outside the shape. If you are a beginner, it will be a little bit trickier for you because whenever I go outside the shape, my lines here are super light. If your lines are blocky and dark, it wouldn't look nice. But still, you should know this even you are a beginner in hair stroke technique, just so that it's already in your mind and you keep practicing for it. So try to lighten up your pressure here and have more passes to darken this area. And again, I just draw the stroke so that it reaches from here, reaches this point and already goes towards the tail. So we are finished with our lower part, and now let me show you how I do the front. And after the front, I will show you how I do the tail. But just give you a little secret, I usually divide this into 4 parts. So this is one of the point. And if you see it this way, then draw the middle line and then do in between. So then I will have 4 equals starting point. Now, as you notice, the first line was straight. It's straight up to the middle and just have a little outside of the shape. The second one is straight too, and at the last part, it has a little curve. Now, for the next line, it actually, if you see, you can just put a little dots for your guidance. You can see that pretty much all these distances are the same, and that's what makes these distances in between the same too. So before you start, you can also a little bit mark the points over here to make sure you arrive at the right destination. So that's how I do the front, and let me show you how I do the tail, the arch. So the first step I did is I continue from this point, continue to do another line. Now this is just a trick. It doesn't have the meaning why do I do another line, such a long line. Actually, it's a trick to bring the 3D effect to this pattern. And later when I finish this whole look, you will see why. And then I started with I started with the tail and I marked the middle part of this line and I did another line that represents this distance everywhere. So in your mind, you have to draw a line that have the same distance as here. And then I just copy the distance and draw another line. So again, these lines will have the same distance. Now, this pattern is not finished yet, but actually at this point, it already will look pretty good on the client just because the brow is smaller and these strokes on the client will look closer and look pretty good. But now let me show you what makes this pattern look amazing and what makes this pattern look super complicated. And don't forget to download this pattern under this video because I have a step-by-step guide for this pattern absolutely for free. But just remember to download after this video because we keep updating the free resources and you might not have it later. So the next step for this pattern is to add the strokes in between. And then after the strokes in between, the last step is to adding the 3D effect. So I can't wait to share with you. Let's dive in. I will again add the strokes first for the bottom line, then for the front, and then for the tail. So what I did just now, I've added the strokes in between, but pay attention where they are connected. So they are not coming inside, they are just slightly reaching the ending point. So they're not here. They are a little bit earlier connecting with the stroke, and you later will see why. Now I have to be honestly, just fix this. So I have to like connect this lower because it has to be connected. It has to be fully connected, so we have a full spine over there, over here. Now after this, I'm just going to add a few strokes. Let me just bring this one a little bit lower intensity. So I'm going to add these tiny strokes here and here, again here and here, here and here. If it's a little bit confusing, I'll just let you know that if this was our original pattern, our main strokes, we just added the stroke in between, like this, as this one, and then we just added the tiny strokes. And I just repeated this everywhere. So this, by changing the color, it might be more visible to you. So again, you can see that they are reaching the stroke at the same distance. Over here, they're also having the same distance. It's just something that makes this pattern look more beautiful, is keeping everywhere the same distances. The same I will do over here, but for the front will be a little bit different. Now, in between these strokes, I will add just additional lines. I will add a tiny bit here, a tiny bit over here, and a tiny here. I can also add, if you know how to add very light strokes, you can also add this at the front. Now for the tail, I will start with this line first. I will just create another eyelash effect here, over here, and a tiny bit over here, and add additional strokes to these. If there's no space here, you can just create one like that. Now, because we have some empty spots over here, I will also add additional strokes. Now we are almost done with the pattern, but there is just one last step that is missing to make sure that this pattern is looking stunning. And by the way, if you see there is a free space, which I see right now, I can just add a stroke to fill this in. And actually over here, you can add additional strokes. There are hairs over here, but if there's no hairs, you can add the strokes to fill the empty area. Now, I will turn this blue color into the pink, just so that we have a full pattern, and I will show you how I add 3D effect to this pattern. All right, so my last step will be adding 3D effect. The first thing, I will make sure I have darkened this part, because this is our spine. It has to be the darkest area in our shape, in our pattern. You can see just by adding this darkness how the pattern already stand out in the middle. But let's go on. So I will add these strokes in the middle. I will also make this one a little bit longer. I think these look good if they're just a little bit tiniest longer. Okay, I will also add darkness to the middle, to these, because I also want them to stand out. I will then add more to these as well. Again, from the middle, I never touch the upper part. And you already see how amazing this pattern looks with just adding the darkness. When you try this yourself, you will also feel like your pattern at first is flat, but then by adding this darkening effect in the middle of each stroke, in the middle of pattern, you will see how big difference it makes. So remember to download free resources under this video. And lastly, little motivation to you. I started just like you. I was afraid of hairstroke technique. I was afraid of drawing patterns. It didn't look good at all. But now that I look back, I'm so glad that I overcome that time and got really great at what I do. And to answer how I did it, well, I followed two things. I knew how to, I had step-by-step knowledge that I'm giving to you right here. And secondly, I put a lot of self-practice, hours of practice. So I wish you do the same. Start practicing now and don't give up on practice. And I will see you next week on my Beauty Slash channel.